Ian Jarvis is a self-proclaimed expert on all things 5G. He's been on this channel before when we looked through one of his interviews. The problem is though, that he's not an expert. Hello all and welcome along to another episode of Tinfoil Tuesday with me, Simon Dan. Thank you very much for joining me. Before we get underway with today's video, I was reading earlier how an asteroid impact on the moon created 2 Grand Canyons in the matter of minutes. And I was reading that story on Ground News, which was actually founded by a former NASA engineer called Harleen Kaur, who worked on the James Webb Telescope. Now, Ground News combines stories and articles from thousands of outlets, local and national, in one place so readers can get the full picture of what's being reported around the world. As you can see here, Ground News shows you if there's any political leanings for each publication. And in this instance, we can see with the moon story that it's centre driven with 107 total news stories. For every story, you get a quick visual breakdown of the news outlet covering it, their political bias, how factual the source is, which entity owns the source, and which countries are covering the story. You can also click on any of the headlines to read the story from its original source. The best thing is you can develop a well-rounded worldview. See every side to every story with access to international perspectives that are hard to find. So then you can make informed decisions, where you can read, watch and share all the best information available. So go to ground.news/Simon to stay fully informed on breaking news, compare coverage and avoid media bias. Sign up for free or subscribe through my link below for 40% off unlimited access, if you support the mission and find it as useful as I do. Right, on with today's video. This week for Tinfoil Tuesday, we are once again taking a look at Ian Jarvis, this time as a guest on Rhys Barry's Breakthrough podcast. He's being asked about 5G, and as usual, Ian shows that he's not really an expert. Let's dive in, shall we?
So let's take a little bit of a different direction then. So let's talk about more of what 5G actually is in terms of the technology behind it and the radiation and the different frequencies. So let's start with the differences then between 4G and 5G. So where does 4G fit into this?
Well, as we know, 4G is the 4th generation of the wireless communication standard used by mobile networks. Now please note that this does not always tie in with your mobile signal, depending on whether or not your voice over LTE is enabled.
Okay, well, everything up to and including 4G is what they call isotropic. It's similar to your TV or your radio signals. It spreads out from a center. Imagine my head, because it happens to be in the camera as the top of a mast. So it spreads out from all directions like us in a sphere. Imagine dropping a stone in a still pond. You see those waves. It's a bit like that, but of course, omnipresence kind of thing. Yeah, it's in 3 dimensions and it's beaming out like that. And it is omnipresent, yeah.
Now this is incorrect. 4G is not fully isotropic. It's directional. It uses sector antennae which cover particular regions. A better term is multi-directional coverage. It's not truly isotropic.
If the device is switched on, then it's going out. You know, we're always covered in radio and TV signals. These are quite low frequencies. With 3G and 4G, those frequencies, the possibility of those frequencies went a little bit higher. I'm not sure what the limit of 4G is, but I think it's probably around about 5 gigahertz.
I love how he says that as if it's massive. I mean, it is, but not in the context of electromagnetic radiation. For example, the lights in this room have a frequency of around 500 terahertz. No one seems to be worried about those high frequencies. He is right though, it tops off at around 5 gigahertz. This, however, doesn't mean anything like he hopes it does. For example, the point I just made about the lights.
Okay, so that's, if you like, the getting into what they call the mid-band. Or they call in the mid-band at the moment. Now 5G, there are several different differences between that and what we're getting in 5G. 5G will cover the whole range of frequencies, including those low ones that 3G and 4G are using, right up, we're told, to 300 gigahertz. Okay, now you can't even imagine that. that at the moment, most of what we're seeing at the moment is 2.4 gigahertz, okay, which is 2,400.
2,400 what? 2,400 megahertz, were you going to say? Because that would be right, not 2,400 hertz. Because, of course, it's 2,400,000,000 hertz, isn't it, Ian?
Question, Ian, why is that significant? Because for most people, they don't think
I'm just getting there. Yeah. And what we are being told is that the 5G is millimeter waves. That only starts around about 23 gigahertz, and they're telling us that it's fast. It's very quick response time. It's but it's blocked easily, and it won't go that far.
This is true. The smaller wavelength, higher frequency waves travel at shorter distances and do not penetrate as much.
Which is basically true. We can argue about the distance that it will go, because what Nokia says on their website and what our councils tell us are two completely different things. At the lower frequencies, it will still go many, many miles. And again, I can give you a reference to a document from the telecom company that says exactly that. Okay, so Nokia actually puts it this way. They say, with the lower frequencies, we can service thousands of customers within hundreds of square miles with one 5G tower at these low to mid-band frequencies. Okay, higher up the spectrum, they won't go so far.
I don't think anyone's arguing about the propagation of electromagnetic waves, Ian. We're all good on this.
Because the waves are much, much smaller when you get up to those 20 gigahertz. So that's it. At the low frequencies, the wavelength is quite long. But as it goes up, the wavelength shortens. And at one point, when it gets to that millimeter level, one scientist, Ben Ishai in Israel, has said when the frequencies are about the same length as our sweat glands, the sweat glands will act as antennas, as aerials, and pull the radiation further into the body.
This is a hypothesis that needs way more research. You can't hang your hat on what this one scientist says. For example, there are many studies indicating that the body absorbs microwave radiation in a manner unrelated to the presence of specific structures like sweat glands.
Okay, this is a physicist saying that. And he did confess, he said, I'm a physicist and not a biologist, so I don't understand what the effect is going to be. But I can say, from our research, that is what is happening.
There's always a caveat, isn't there?
So that's, again, one of the reasons for it. The other difference, the other big difference between 4G and 5G is 5G is not isotropic. It doesn't radiate out in all angles. It's created into what they call collimated beams. Now, these are parallel beams, and they use very clever software technology to make some of the waves being out of phase and some of them in phase. Don't ask me to. I don't understand it. I get the technology from good people that I know who are still working in those hardware, software areas of technology.
You don't understand, but you know it's not safe, is what I heard there.
I'm not anymore. So it aims a beam out, and that beam, so you will have, if you've got, in theory, your phone here, and you are genuinely using a 5G signal, that would be a beam straight onto your phone.
Two things to say here. The technology used for these collimated beams are within regulated safety limits, and the intensity of radiation is focused rather than dispersed. So from your point of view, surely this method is better. There's not a widespread area of radiation, is there? It will affect less people.
I can't remember how many years ago this was now. It wasn't that long ago. So when we started to see more marketing around 5G, and it was the phone networks that were pushing it, was, he was on the telly saying 5G.
Yeah.
Somebody said, and it was a reliable source, that it's not actually 5G. It was just the marketing. They changed the name of it. That's all they did. It wasn't actual 5G. It was still 4G, but they were just preparing, for 5G. So I don't actually know if 5G actually is. I don't think it is.
Oh, that's a nice roundabout way of telling Ian that he's been wasting his time all these years, Barry.
Oh, I think I sometimes say when you see some people see 5G on their phone. Well,
sometimes.
I mean that might be 5G, but it could also you can use any trick. You can put anything up there. Put a little bunny rabbit's head up there. That's just a symbol on your phone saying, I recognize something, and I'm going to tell you it's 5G, whether it is or not. And I've heard similar things to what your friend has said, and I've also heard that handheld devices are not safe to be beaming 5G straight at.
5G devices are designed with safety in mind, adhering to international guidelines and safety standards. These standards are based off extensive research, and the scientific community agrees that the risks of 5G exposure are minimal. Look, I understand why people like Ian might be concerned here, especially since 5G uses high frequencies and things like beamforming. However, 5G radiation is classified as non-ionizing, which means it doesn't have the energy to damage our cells like X-rays, for example, do. Also, as I said, devices that use 5G are carefully regulated to make sure that the power levels are safe. The focus of the beams minimize exposure outside of the targeted area, and there is no evidence to suggest that this exposure causes harm when within established safety limits. Now, health organisations have also stated that the radiation levels associated with 5G are well below harmful thresholds, so it is safe for normal use. Right, well there we go, another Tinfoil Tuesday all wrapped up. Let me know what you think of Ian and his thoughts there in the comments. As I say, we're all done and dusted for another one. Thanks so much for watching today, it truly is appreciated. If you enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing to the channel as well as hitting the thumbs up button too. Just enough time to once again thank Ground News for sponsoring today's video. Remember, go to ground.news/Simon to stay fully informed on breaking news, compare coverage and avoid media bias. Sign up for free or subscribe through my link to get 40% off unlimited access if you support the mission and find it as useful as I do. I've been Simon Dan, have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next final experiment meltdown update. See you then.